I'm your host, Annie Bowles, and this is News du Jour. Hey, you guys, and welcome back to the News du Jour, a calmer space to consume the news. I hope everyone had a fun and safe Halloween night. I may or may not be wearing a Catwoman outfit as I am recording this episode. It is late on Halloween night. I'm definitely sleepy, but excited to get you guys the news because we didn't have any news yesterday. So I had some personal things going on over the weekend, and I just thought we would do a bonus episode instead of me throwing something together for you guys last minute. I always put in tons of effort to my episodes. And so if I'm not in a capacity to do that, I will always have some other content ready for you guys. But anywho, we have a bunch of stuff to go over because we're a little delayed. So let's jump into the news for today. First up, I wanted to issue a content warning. This story involves a violent assault and an attempted murder. So we have to talk, of course, about Nancy Pelosi's husband. Let me start by saying this. No matter what side of the aisle you land on, violence against our elected officials especially, or their families, should never be tolerated. Violence, period, is never okay. I got some alarming messages on Instagram after sharing this headline, and I want everyone to know, and I want to make this very perfectly clear, kindness and compassion are the foundation of this community and this platform. Anything else can find somewhere else to get their news. Anywho, now that that is out of the way, let's get into the details of exactly what happened to Mr. Pelosi and why. So it began with the police receiving a highly distressed phone call from Mr. Pelosi in his bathroom when he heard an intruder break in through the back door of his San Francisco home. The police immediately recognized that the situation was extreme and rushed to the home. And thank God they did, because they found a man actively attacking Mr. Pelosi with a hammer, and the man was also wielding zip ties as well. They were locked in a tug of war over the hammer initially, but the 42-year-old intruder managed to pull it out of Mr. Pelosi's grip and began violently beating him with it. That is when police tackled him to the floor. Both men were rushed to the hospital at about 2:30 a.m. Mr. Pelosi suffered a skull fracture and serious injuries to his hands and his right arm. Luckily, the surgeries went through successfully, and he is expected to recover fully, physically at least. So who was this intruder? Well, his name is David DePape, and he is apparently deeply involved in conspiracies and racism online, especially anti-Semitism. When he initially entered the home, it is reported that he yelled out, "Where is Nancy?" several times. So this was not a random act. He was looking to attack the Speaker of the House specifically. An ex-girlfriend of his has come forward, according to the San Francisco Chronicle, to attest that he has struggled with mental illness for a long time, to the extent that he believed he was Jesus for a whole year. He was also known to isolate and even lived in a storage unit for a period of time. In the days leading up to the attack, his postings online got more and more manic and extreme. Many people in his life had distanced themselves from him because he was getting scary to be around. And obviously their feelings on the situation were correct. David DePape will be charged with elder abuse, attempted murder, assault with a deadly weapon, and several other felonies that were associated with breaking and entering into Nancy Pelosi's home. Between this, the January 6th attacks, and the rise in threats against our elected officials, the job of leading our country is getting more and more dangerous. And then, of course, we have to discuss the elephant in the room, or should I say the birdie in the room. After much back and forth and in and out and lots of drama, Elon Musk officially owns Twitter, you guys. Here we go. As of Thursday night and $44 billion spent, Elon Musk owns Twitter. And he went to town laying people off. This included many top executives. And it is said that at least one of those executives was actually escorted out of the building. The drama. Musk met with Twitter employees in person in San Francisco. Now that the company is being taken private, the public will have a lot less knowledge about the goings-on of this company and how it may or may not be performing financially, which is super interesting. Elon still refers to himself as a quote-unquote free speech absolutist, and that's a little terrifying with a platform like Twitter that's already known for just complete trolls and horrible things being said left and right. And originally he said he would reverse the permanent ban on former President Trump. So will we be hearing more from Kanye West or President Trump or others who have previously been kicked off of the platform? Who can say? Others predict that advertising is actually going to go down because companies won't want their ads next to the type of content that is sure to flood this new form of Twitter. Will their predictions be true? What other changes to the Twitterverse await us? Only time will tell. Stay tuned. And next up for today, I wanted to issue a content warning here as well. This story involves descriptions of a violent stampede. So we have to discuss a deadly event in Korea this Halloween. So over in Seoul, in South Korea, at least 149 people were killed at a large Halloween event when yet another crowd got out of control. Now, I want to put out sort of a disclaimer here at the top that this was described by almost all the news outlets I read about it on as a stampede. After digging into this much deeper, I really disagree with that analysis. When you picture stampede, you picture like people running and like a lot of frantic activity. From digging into it on TikTok and watching actual videos of the event, that's not what was happening. It was, what's the term? A crowd surge. That's what this was. It was a crowd surge, not a stampede. So that is where it's just more like slow and dense and people are just like crushing each other slowly. I know that's super graphic, but that's why I did, a content warning at the top here because this is a really tough situation that happened. So I feel like we've covered similar events at least in the past year. So Astroworld was about a year ago, and the Indonesian soccer game where there was an actual stampede was just last month. These events are happening in close succession, you guys. They're all social events. The recipe is simple: a large crowd and pushing and shoving or a catalyst of some sort. Maybe a fight breaks out. Maybe someone pushes a little too hard. Someone else pushes back. And before we know it, panic sets in and everyone is headed towards the exits. That's when things typically get crazy. But This was actually one of the deadliest peacetime events in Seoul's history, according to their fire department. Over 100,000 people assembled in the nation's capital for what is supposed to be one of the most fun nights of the year, normally at least. The chaos really began in the Itaewon district on Saturday night around 4 a.m. Not much can be said about exactly what caused the incident, other than the fact that this district has very narrow streets and there were so many people there that people began getting packed in like sardines. And when I say that, I mean in the most intense graphic way. And the more people that showed up, the tighter it got. Police cited a narrow alleyway as a place where it really all began, but it's so hard to tell. People on TikTok who claim to be witnesses or are posting actual video footage said that this was not a stampede, but rather a, quote, slow and agonizing crush, end quote. The video footage shows bodies kind of suspended, intertwined, contorted, and just motionless, interlocked, like as if you took puzzle pieces and just jammed them together. Hundreds of people were injured in this event. About 300 people are missing. And like I said, 149 people at least have been confirmed dead. They lined up the dead in a row along the street as the police began to uncover the bodies. And it's just horrible to see this imagery. Families gathered at a nearby gymnasium and waited as the police began bringing bodies there for identification. One known victim was 24-year-old Lee Ji-han, who is known as a K-pop singer and an actor. The country is in a period of mourning for all of the young lives that were lost so unexpectedly. The police are looking into the scene and trying their best to determine what went wrong. But again, with so much chaos and so many people, it can be really difficult to determine a root cause for these types of crowd emergencies. Our hearts go out to everyone who was affected by this tragedy. And lastly for today, I just wanted to discuss real quickly Xi's creepy vow. So Xi Jinping, China's president, was just reelected, if you can really call it that. He more or less elected himself. But a speech he gave, it's really giving full body chills around the world. He essentially vowed to achieve world dominance by 2049. He said he wants to make sure that China, quote, leads the world in terms of composite national strength and international influence, end quote. Meaning he is looking to knock the U.S. out of that top position of global power. By 2049, will he achieve it? Between his COVID lockdowns, climate change, and his tension with Taiwan, it feels pretty unlikely, but who knows? Whatever happens, you can be sure that we'll be here to tell you about it. And that is the news du jour. Today, I wanted to leave you guys with the quote, if you cannot feed 100 people, just feed one. If you enjoyed this episode, please consider becoming a patron of our podcast. For $7.99 a month, you can unlock tons of perks like breaking news text messages so that you're never out of the loop. Tons of bonus episodes are already up there ready for you to binge, and a discussion board full of networking opportunities and much more. Go to www.patreon.com/sugarfree media today to become a patron. This is the best way to support our show. Our patrons make News du Jour possible. But a couple other ways to support our podcast are rate and review on whatever podcast platform you use to listen, share on your social media, you have influence, tell your friends, family, and colleagues that you love News du Jour and why you listen. You can also follow us on social media under sugarfreemedia.co on Instagram, just sugarfreemedia, all one word, on TikTok, and sugarfree_media on Twitter. We also have a weekend newsletter called Dreamers Digest that's full of dreamy content recommendations for your weekend and a life update from yours truly. Sign up today on our website, www.sugarfreemedia.co. Our music is by Joey Lavoie and Nicholas Foster. Our cover art is by Hannah Pierce Photography. Our Sugar Free Media logo is by Catherine Jezik Designs. Any twinkling or little footsteps you might hear in the background are by my dog, Rhett. He's a rescue pup and always records with me. We appreciate you listening and look forward to telling you about the news again next time on News du Jour.
Broadcasting from Oklahoma.